and he left Washington University and headed on up the valley and was headmaster of a one-room school for men in those days. And I came along. I came out of the Navy in World War II, and never went in to see my dad. He wasn't well then. He was in his final years. And he said, "I want you to go to Washington Lee." And I said, "Well, Dad, you know, I didn't even finish school. I quit, joined the Navy. A lot of other fellows did in World War II. No big deal. We wanted to get away from home and family and meet the girls and drink some beer." Anyway, I did go on down to Washington Lee. So I've been driving old Route 1 a long time, and spent a good deal of time in my Senate years trying to fix up 81 and always keep old Route 11 the way it was. And so I've been a part of this community for a long time. And I dare say, you don't have to stand, you don't have to raise your hands, but I'll bet you there's a few in here may have voted for me one time. I did. But I've been given the greatest privilege a man can have, a man or a woman, and that is to serve the Commonwealth of Virginia in the United States Senate. I never dreamt this would be an opportunity given me by this state. And once you get that opportunity, it really sobers you up. As you know, the buck stops on your desk. You're looking after a lot of people. We're up over 8 million people now. Just think of that. When I was first in the Senate, it was far less. But I felt kinfolks and kinship to all of them. And I did my best, as Mark said, to always put Virginia or the United States before politics. I like politics. Proud to have been a Republican, still a Republican. But when at times like this, you have to reach out and find whom you believe is the best qualified person. And I've known Mark very well for a number of years. As we said, we had a little dust up once upon a time. He became governor, and lo and behold, he reached out to me and said, there are a couple things that we have to get done for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I need some Republican support. I need the image of then the senior senator from Virginia to come forward and help me. And that I did, unhesitating. Amen. And Mark has carried forth in his work, be it in the governor's office or in the Senate, much the same way that I have. Folks, if you look back over the political history of this country and the great pieces of legislation, it is clear that when America has made a large stride in terms of new laws, it's those laws that were reached through consensus, through bipartisanship, and through some measure of compromise. The word compromise is, unfortunately, sort of in my party, fallen into total disregard. But you know, in this room are people who have made their lives, done their businesses, and you compromised as you went on. Many of you, like myself, are blessed with a good marriage. I make a compromise every day. I just don't think there's any more territory I can give up. I'm hanging in. I had just the greatest privilege to have a submarine named for me. And Mark came down, did the governor and many others to first salute the importance of national security in our great state of Virginia. Stop to think, we're number 2, 3, 4 in terms of military contracts and people stationed here. So it's an important thing, and Mark has done a great deal. I'll speak to that on behalf of our military. But there we all were, and my wife took the bottle, you know, of good old Virginia champagne, and I made sure of that. Popped it on the nose of that huge submarine, and at that moment, I was reduced in rank back to petty officer 3rd class, which I was in World War II. She is now chief of the boat. She came and kissed me off this morning and said good luck. She's solidly with Mark. She and Mark's lovely wife and family who are all been friends. But we're here to talk about the seriousness of this election and the importance of your participation and my participation to see that this man is given the opportunity to continue in our great state. What troubles me about Virginia politics through the years is the following. The senators throughout history have stayed for very long periods of time. They've risen in seniority and passed major pieces of legislation and led. I mean, when I first came to the Congress in 1979, I added up Virginia's seniority in the Congress of the United States. Harry Byrd Jr. was finishing his, I think, 18th year. I came in as a freshman. The members of the House of Representatives, many of them had been here 15, 20 years. And it added up to well over 120 some odd years of seniority for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Virginia stood out in the Congress and listened to its members. Believe me, Virginia was leader in the Congress of the United States. Now, I had the good fortune to rise through seniority these many years, become vice chairman of the Intelligence Committee. I'll go back to that. Mark is on that now. And then, of course, ranking and chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee for 17 years. And ended up as the second longest serving United States Senator in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I can only do that knowing that I had folks like you all over this state that would support me. May not always agree with me, but would support me and trust my judgment. And in this man, Mark Warner, you have placed your trust, as have the majority of Virginians, in his election for governor, in his election for the United States Senate. And that must continue. The other seat in the Senate during my 30 years changed 5 times. Stop to think about it. 5 times. It flip-flopped. And I'm not disparaging any of those who served with me. They were fine men. Paul Tribble, Chuck Robb, George Allen, Jim Webb. They were fine men. And now we got Tim Kaine, who's a superb senator and a strong one. But if anything were to happen to Mark in this race and fail to stay in the Senate, Virginia would go to the very bottom, I repeat, the bottom of seniority rankings in the United States Senate with Tim Kaine's 2 years of service. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to send this man back, and he is committed to work harder than he has before. And what did you do slough off the first time around? He's up on TV this week. Oh, I'm going to do this. Well, I believe him. He's a man of credibility. If I didn't believe him, I wouldn't be here. If I didn't have confidence in his integrity, his honesty, and his ability to faithfully carry forward and work as hard in this job, I wouldn't be here. And it's a good piece. He closes the campaign on a positive note by looking you square in the eye in that piece. I don't know if you want to all see the campaign poster I put up for him when I said he had the guts to cross the aisle. Oh, I like that piece. But he does have the guts, as I did, to cross that aisle. And we don't want the Virginia Senate seat flip-flop again. I mean, there's going to be a football game here this afternoon. James Madison. You go out and ask the coach, does he want any turnovers? No. Do we want a turnover in the Senate? No. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been following my daddy's footsteps here in the valley. I'm going back to my old farm tonight up there in Front Royal, where I've been since 1936. And I love it down here. Of course, I used to tell everybody wherever I went in the state I loved it, but I tell you, this is from my heart. We're going to cross the mountain and go over to UVA. That's where I went to law school, and he went to No, damn it, you went north. That's right. I do remember that. I never will forget. I ran against Andy Miller, the famous name in Virginia politics. He was Attorney General. Where's the jump? There it is. And old Andy and I were in our last debate. And he got up and he said to the audience, he said, you know, I'll give you that one reason to vote for me. I was born in Virginia. Well, I got up, walked to the stand, and I'm saying to myself, how do I dig out of that ditch? I said, well, my mother's sitting right here. She was 86 years old, sitting in the audience. And I said, Mama, did I have anything to do with where I was born? You went into town in Washington to the hospital. My father was chief of surgery and gynecology and had me there. She said, no, but if we'd known our little boy wanted to run for the Senate, well, I'd cross the river and had him under the trees. I won that election. And then old Andy Miller, I said, Andy, I wasn't born in Virginia, but I did make the decision that where I would go to school is in Virginia. And I went to General Lee's University, George Washington University, and you went north to Princeton. Do we forgive you? And I'll roast you a little bit over in Charlottesville today. But folks, we end with a smile, but a commitment in our heart to do our very best, not just for Mark Warner, but for Virginia, to keep that Senate seniority, to keep that traditions in this great state, and let's hope he can straighten out old I-81. Here we go.
John Warner.